Now, calm yourself, Shmelf. Of course you don't know, since you're still quite newish, but the kids on this list are actually Jewish. They don't celebrate Christmas, but that's fine, you see. They celebrate Hanukkah, their own jubilee. It won't be dear Santa who brings them a gift, but their mommies and daddies. Do you get my drift?
This is the Book of Life. I'm Heidi Rabinowitz. Shmelf the Hanukkah Elf by Greg Wolfe is a picture book that combines Christmas and Hanukkah traditions. But is this a good combination? My guests Rachel Kamin and Kathy Bloomfield argue that it is not. I recorded their impassioned critique of the book during the 2016 conference of the Association of Jewish Libraries in Charleston, South Carolina. I'd like to note that Rachel Kamin did contact the publisher with her concerns, but as of this interview's publication a month later, she tells me that she has not heard anything back. Take a listen, and please do share your own reactions to Shmelf in the comments section at bookoflifepodcast.com. So I'm here at the Association of Jewish Libraries 2016 conference in Charleston, South Carolina, sitting with Rachel Kamin and Kathy Bloomfield, who are both past members of the Sidney Taylor Book Award Committee. Rachel was also the chair of the committee at one point. Kathy, you were on the committee twice, right?
Right. I just got off from a 2-year term.
Right. You took over a term for somebody who couldn't complete it. Right. Okay. So both very experienced, and I actually would like to have you each give a little background about yourself because we're going to argue about something. And I want your credentials to be on record to explain why people should listen to your opinions. So, Kathy, explain who you are and why we should listen to you.
I'm Kathy Bloomfield, and I had a Jewish book fair business called Forwards Books. I did that for 10 or 11 years, and then Amazon came along, and I stopped doing that. And then I came back in as a Forwards Books as a blog. So what I do is look for secular books with Jewish values content. So that's my background. And I'm going to be the president of SSC this next 2 years. So I'll be on the board of the HAL.
Okay. And just to define it for non-HAL listeners, the Association of Jewish Libraries has two divisions. The SSC division is school, synagogue, and center librarians. Right. The other division being RAS, which is for research, archives, and special libraries, if I'm remembering the acronym correctly. So sort of an academic division and a more public service-oriented division, I guess you would say. And Rachel.
I have been a synagogue librarian for 19 years. This is my 20th Association of Jewish Libraries conference. And in addition to serving on the Sidney Taylor Book Award Committee and being a chair, I am currently the co-editor of book reviews for children and teens for the Association of Jewish Libraries Review Journal. So I am getting copies of every new Jewish children's book that is being published each year.
Okay, so these are two experts that I've got here with me, widely read in the Judaic children's literature genre. So let's talk about this controversy that came up in conversation while we were here together at the conference. Rachel, start us off.
Okay, so I request review copies for AJL from the various publishers. And one of the books that was on my list as being published this September 2016 was a book called Shmelf the Hanukkah Elf by Greg Wolfe, and the illustrations are by Howard McWilliam, and it's being published by Bloomsbury Publishing. Just to describe, when I opened the envelope that appeared on my doorstep, it's a beautiful, attractive, colorful cover that depicts an elf in a traditional elf suit with the pointy shoes and the buckle and the pointy hat, but instead of wearing the traditional green and red or red and white of Santa's elves, he is in a blue and white elf outfit. He's got a gold Jewish star at the tip of his hat. In one hand, he is holding a lit menorah, and the other hand, a plate of latkes. And there are two spinning dreidels, as well as a reindeer in the background. So, of course, when you pull this out of the envelope, your first reaction is, what is this book, I'm almost afraid to open it. But I did, and I read it. And we didn't mention with our credentials, Kathy and I also happen to be good friends. And my first reaction upon reading this book was, I cannot wait to show this to Kathy Bloomfield. And I almost wanted to videotape her reaction while reading the book. So just to give a little summary of Shmelf the Hanukkah Elf, it opens at Santa's workshop in the North Pole. It's told in rhyme. It depicts all the Christmas elves hard at work in Santa's workshop. And we're introduced to one of the elves named Shmelf. And Shmelf's job is that there's the naughty list and the nice list. And Shmelf's job is to make sure that no children on the nice list are left off of Santa's present delivery list. And Shmelf discovers that there is a whole list of nice children who are not on Santa's list. He's found many children who had been quite good, but would not receive presents, though it seems that they should. So he goes to the head elf, who I must say is black. So we have multicultural elves. The head elf responds, Now, calm yourself, Shmelf. Of course you don't know, since you're still quite newish, but the kids on this list are actually Jewish. They don't celebrate Christmas, but that's fine, you see. They celebrate Hanukkah, their own jubilee. It won't be dear Santa who brings them a gift, but their mommies and daddies. Do you get my drift? So Shmelf needs to investigate for himself, and he peeks in the window from one of the Jewish kids. Shmelf peered in and wondered, could this be right? There wasn't a tree or a stocking in sight. Instead, he saw menorahs with candles so thin, and children were giving their dreidels a spin. There was gelt, chocolate coins wrapped up in gold foil, and latkes frying in pans filled with oil. Then Shmelf saw there were presents, one for each night. His elfish eyes gleamed as he squealed with delight. And, of course, the illustrations depict a wonderful contemporary, happy, smiling Jewish family, a mom, a dad, and 3 children, with sufganiot and dreidels and the menorah, the Hanukkah, and everyone is happy and having a wonderful Hanukkah. The mother tells the children the story of Hanukkah, and so he hears the mother explain the Hanukkah story about the miracle of the oil and the Maccabees. And Shmelf's response is, hey, now I get it, Shmelf said with a grin. Hanukkah's awesome. I'm totally in. And he goes back to the North Pole and reports back to Santa. And Santa's response is, good Shmelf, chuckled Santa. It fills me with joy to see how you care for Jewish girls and boys. It shows me that you are much more than a clerk, and so I will task you with this special work. Shmelf is going to become the Hanukkah Elf and will travel the world bringing magic and joy to the Jewish boys and girls who don't have Christmas. Santa gave Shmelf clothes of white and blue, the colors of Hanukkah, that much Shmelf knew, and a sleigh that could soar straight through the air with a Jewish reindeer by the name of Asher. Or Asher, I guess we should say, to rhyme with air. So Shmelf has his own sleigh with a Jewish star on it. Shmelf will visit all of the good Jewish kids for 8 nights each December. And they do point out some years it is in November, which is an important point to make. And Shmelf will make sure your latkes are crispy and thin, your menorahs burn brighter, your dreidels will win. And if there's one special gift that you'd like this year, tell Shmelf, and he'll whisper in Mom's or Dad's ear. He'll do what he can to nudge them that way in hopes that the present brings cheers of hooray. And to reward Shmelf and Asher for all their goodwill, you can leave out some gelt and a nice kosher dill. And there's an illustration of Shmelf enjoying his chocolate gelt and Asher, the reindeer, enjoying his kosher pickle. The story concludes, what a magical Hanukkah, you'll think to yourself. See you next year, Shmelf the Hanukkah Elf. And then I read on the flap the author's bio. Greg Wolfe, according to the back flap, was raised a nice Jewish boy who happened to also be a true believer in Santa, elves, and flying reindeer. Greg lives in Southern California with his wife and young son, for whom he wrote Shmelf to prove that Santa believes in him too. I just personally and professionally had so many problems with this book, and we have seen a few other books like this that I have also had problems with, but the way I described it to my colleagues was this is beyond the worst we've ever seen. I don't like to blacklist a book, but I feel very strongly about how inappropriate and insensitive and offensive that this book is, and just completely astonished that Bloomsbury, a very reputable publisher of high-quality children's books, would publish this. Do we need to do something to kind of combat the message in this book, which to me basically is that Hanukkah sucks, and and we'll never compare to the magic of Christmas, and Jewish children should be pitied because they do not have Christmas, and that Hanukkah needs an infusion of Christmas magic to make it all better.
Kathy, Rachel brought the book to show you. What was your reaction when you saw it?
I had a pretty visceral reaction to it. It was like one travesty after another. First, there's the idea that it's only the Jewish children that he's focusing on
that are
left off the list. I don't know what happened to the Hindu children, the Buddhist children, the Muslim children, the non-believing children. I don't know what happened to all of them. I guess it's the Jews that we're saving from the fires of hell. I don't know. I also was really uncomfortable when I saw this list of Jewish names. Kind of evokes bad thoughts in my head about concentration camps and Schindler's List and all of that kind of thing. As Rachel said, it's offensive, it's insensitive. So where my head went was, why are we seeing all of these books that express some desire that our Jewish experience be exactly like the Christmas experience? Rachel used a term called Christmas envy. I think that's pretty apropos to this, but it goes back to there was this elf that they started putting on the shelf, and now everybody has to have something like that elf, which I believe is probably the worst parenting decision you would ever make, to put that elf all around the house never knowing.
Explain what the elf on the shelf is in case people don't know.
Okay, so the elf on the shelf is not a Christmas tradition. It has only been around for maybe 5 years and become extremely popular. And the elf is the eyes of Santa. So if you're being good, the elf will report back to Santa that you're being good. As parents, you are supposed to move the elf all around the house during the pre-Christmas days. So the kids never know where the elf is going to be hiding to watch them be good or bad. I just wonder why the parents don't buy one of those cameras and put that in the house and move that around to see how their children are behaving. It's just, to me, it's a psychologist's end of the rainbow, pot of gold. At some point, these kids are going to say, but I had this elf watching me all the time.
You're going to be in therapy years later?
And you can buy clothes for the elf and all that stuff.
And there's been some backlash. I mean, I think that then it became very funny on Facebook for parents to be very creative and clever of where the elf was, so people would post pictures of their elf sitting on the edge of the toilet seat with a fishing rod and the little goldfish crackers in the toilet bowl, or they'd have the elf driving in the Barbie convertible with Barbie and Ken, and parents would get very creative and clever with this and take pictures and post them on Facebook, and that, I think, became a thing to share your creative and clever elf on the shelf pictures. But I will say that then I did notice, maybe this past Christmas or the year before, that there was some backlash, among elf on the shelf adopters, that it really ruined Christmas. My one girlfriend said that, she woke up at 3 a.m. and shook her husband awake and said, "Did you move the elf?" Because she woke up with a nightmare that they had both forgotten to move the elf, because the children come down one day and the elf's in the same spot he was yesterday, then they're no longer going to believe in the elf, and
all hell break loose
to North Pole and back and can't find its way to the right place. It's going to stop somewhere new.
So she said it it was and then of course realized what are we doing? Why did we get ourselves into this? Right. And so then there was a little bit of people warning new parents, don't start with the elf on the shelf.
Well, not even the stress on the parents to have one more thing to do, but just the creepiness that this elf is watching you and spying on you.
And I think also ruining the magic of Christmas. I know some parents had said that the kids figure out that the parents are moving the elf and that the elf's not real, and then they're not then going to believe in Santa.
Which is also a strange psychological thing from my point of view about why you lie to your children.
Christian parents who then feel like the Elf on the Shelf it didn't enhance their Christmas celebration. It kind of ruined it and took away the magic of Santa.
Right. And so the Jewish version.
So the Jewish version.
So we can't, if all of these children have an Elf on the Shelf or families, the Jews can't not have something similar. We have to have something as well. And not only do we have to have one thing, we have to come up with three things. So we have the Mensch on the bench, the Maccabee on the mantle, and the Gelt-giving Golem. Those are three absolute rip-offs of the Elf on the Shelf that are for Jewish kids. I'm not sure that the other two watch or whatever, but I think the Mensch on the bench is you move it around, right? I think that's the case with that. Anyway, it's sort of like, why? Why do you think this is so important? So that's kind of the start of that trend. They have this, we should have this, or something like it that's Jewish. Mm-hmm. Then we had a book last year called Dear Santa, Love Rachel Rosenstein. This goes into a little bit more of the Christmas envy issue, which is that Rachel Rosenstein really, really wants to celebrate Christmas, desperately. Her mom is like, we're Jewish and we don't celebrate Christmas. She doesn't care. She wants Christmas in the worst possible way. So she writes a letter to Santa. She goes to the mall and sits on Santa's lap. She makes Christmas decorations in secret that she hangs up in secret on Christmas Eve night. She leaves a latke and cookies for Santa and the reindeer. And, of course, Santa doesn't come. So she's extremely disappointed. And she goes to the Chinese restaurant. Their tradition for that night was a night of Hanukkah. And then she notices that some of her other friends are there, and they're not celebrating Christmas either. And so it makes her feel like, well, maybe it's not so bad. I have friends who are also in the same boat with me. But if it had ended with, this is a wonderful holiday. Look, I'm here with my family. We're eating together. We're celebrating. I got presents, whatever. That would have been fine. We have a good resolution to being Jewish at Christmas time. But no, instead, the ending is sometimes, no matter how badly we want something, we just have to accept what is. So I'm sorry. You're going to have to accept the fact that you're Jewish and you're not going to get Christmas. That doesn't resonate with me for a lot of reasons. So now we have this Shmelf the Hanukkah Elf. It's like
it's worse.
It's like Rachel Rosenstein on steroids. It's like, what are you thinking?
Well, and I think what makes it worse in this case, because I personally could relate to Rachel Rosenstein and Christmas envy, and I think many Jewish children, American Jewish children at some point in their lives, experienced various degrees of Christmas envy. Christmas is a beautiful holiday. Christmas is a fun holiday. We are surrounded by Christmas,
Lights
so
everywhere.
It's beautiful and it's magical and it's wonderful, and like, who wouldn't want to celebrate Christmas? So I think it's quite a natural thing for children who don't want to be different and who see this awesome, special, magical holiday and want to be a part of it. So I didn't have a problem with that aspect of the Rachel Rosenstein book, but again, the resolution of it was disappointing. What makes Shmelf even worse is the Jewish family is perfectly happy celebrating Hanukkah in this book. This is not a book about Christmas envy. It's the elf and Santa deciding that the Jews need Christmas.
So it's kind of patronizing.
So it's very patronizing because they depict a wonderful Hanukkah celebration. So if it maybe had ended with Shmelf goes to spy for himself because he doesn't quite believe that this is such a shanda that these children don't have Christmas.
If he had reported back, look at this. I just went to somebody's house and it's so wonderful. It's a wonderful holiday. I don't have to worry about it anymore.
And then the book could end. It would then, there's still no point to the book. I mean, I still wouldn't recommend the book, but it wouldn't have been so offensive
or insulting
or patronizing because the family is perfectly happy celebrating Hanukkah. Right. There was no Christmas envy there. And it was Shmelf, who we're not assuming is Jewish.
He has the name Shmelf.
He somehow has the name Shmelf, but in the beginning he's clearly a Christmas elf in red and green and whatever. So he's not Jewish, and obviously if he was, he didn't know anything about Hanukkah, so we're assuming he's not Jewish.
He's a converso.
He's a secret Jew. So, that's, I think, what's so upsetting about it is that it's like they decided. And again, my issue with this book is I feel like if you put Hanukkah versus Christmas in a contest, Hanukkah will lose every single time, no matter what we do. You add a mensch on the bench, you add Shmelf the Elf, you have a Hanukkah bush, you know, all these things, the gingerbread, you know, there's now like the Jewish gingerbread house kit that you can buy. You can try to add all those things to Hanukkah, but Hanukkah will never compare to Christmas, and that's because it shouldn't. It's a minor Jewish holiday. Christmas is a major Christian holiday with significant religious meaning and history, and also
it has been turned into a merchandising mecca. The commercialization of Christmas is kind of what's causing some of this. Is, well, look what everybody else has. They get to go to the mall and they get to shop all hours of the day.
Right?
And
Don't you want to do that too?
You want to do that? Why?
And that's
Why should the Jews not be good customers at Christmas time too?
Exactly. And Hanukkah has been commercialized in America too, which is why there are all
competing
these,
with
competing with Christmas, and that's another issue. So my point is Hanukkah will always lose versus Christmas, but if you take Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur and Sukkot and Simchat Torah and Purim and Tu B'Shvat and Passover and Shabbat and Havdalah versus Christmas, then, I think that that's the answer to the Christmas envy. And that's the message I personally want to instill with my children, the message that I feel my parents instilled in me, and the message that we are trying to instill in our supplemental Hebrew schools, like where I work, that we can still admire Christmas. We can still appreciate Christmas. Christmas is beautiful, and that is fine, but it's not our holiday. And we still wouldn't trade it for the world, as beautiful and wonderful as magical it is. And it also reminds me of the Joel Grishhaver book, 40 Things You Can Do to Save the Jewish People. And one of his things is visit Christmas. That you can go down and see the lights, and you can admire, and you can celebrate Christmas at your Christian friend's house or family members, if that's the case. And you can appreciate all of those things, but that you make it clear that you are visiting Christmas, just like you can then invite your non-Jewish friends to observe Hanukkah with you, or to come to the Passover Seder or Shabbat dinner or whatever. That we can visit these holidays, but as long as the message is these holidays, we respect them, they're beautiful, they're wonderful, but they're not ours. Right. And our life can be just as fulfilling without them, and we wouldn't trade.
We're proud and happy to be Jewish and have our holidays, which are our unique contribution to the world, if you will. If you want to raise your kids Jewish, then do all the holidays. Don't just think Hanukkah and Passover are the only Jewish holidays that you can celebrate. Celebrate Shabbat every week. That makes a huge difference in a kid's life, is to say, every week I have something special. My family gets together, we have a great dinner, we have friends, and my friends get to come over and celebrate that with me.
I do think that Christmas envy is going to happen, and that any Jewish child says, I wish we celebrated Christmas, doesn't mean that their parents have failed to instill Judaism. Of course. You're going to have that twinge of Christmas envy at that time of year, but that it's not going to last. And then it's not something they're going to carry into their adulthood if you instill all these other things. Right. My concern with a book like Shmelf the Hanukkah Elf is it maybe validates for those parents who are falling into the trap of the mensch on the bench and well, can't we be raising our kids Jewish, but also adopt some of these non-Jewish customs so that our kids don't have to be different and so that our kids don't feel left out? And a book like Shmelf kind of validates it's okay to borrow these Christmas traditions. And I also think what's interesting is that if this had been a book that was depicting an interfaith family, that's a whole nother issue. We're not talking about blending. No. They're not talking about blending the two holidays.
Not at all. If Shmelf had just gone to the house and saw everyone's having a wonderful time, then he could have reported back, you know what, we have no problem here. We don't have to worry about them. Their parents are going to give them presents, and they're having a damn good time.
And then but then he needs to go on to the Hindu and the Muslim and investigate to make sure
all the children are
doing okay.
That Diwali is a good holiday, and Ramadan is a good holiday.
We're all doing okay
at
with
that time
Christmas,
of year.
So.
I mean, it's just. I believe that Jewish educators and Jewish librarians will not accept this book in their library. I don't have any concern about that. And my concern is that this is going to wind up in our public libraries. And that a teacher, our school library, and a teacher is going to say, oh, a new Hanukkah book, this is fantastic, and go into their classroom and read it, and that poor Jewish child or children are going to be Is there something wrong with me because I'm not celebrating Christmas?
So, Kathy, you are a Jew by choice, and your childhood was... What form of Christian was it?
So I was raised Roman Catholic.
Okay.
Italian Roman Catholic.
Okay.
Let's be clear. My memories of Christmas are really good memories. They involve both Santa Claus and presents. My mom was a little crazy with the presents. But it also involved midnight mass, going to church, and having the whole family over for a huge dinner. Those are my memories of Christmas. Santa wasn't such a big deal. It wasn't, I mean, look, we're talking a long time ago. It wasn't all about Santa. My best memories are of making the nativity scene, the creches, you know, with the baby Jesus and the camels and the wise men and the shepherds and all of that, just creating that diorama of the story. That was a big deal for me. The Santa thing, okay, I get presents. That's great. Some I liked, some I didn't. Okay, we're good. But for me, the having the family together, that was a big thing. So when I converted to Judaism, I had to figure out where to put my Christmas energy. And I put my Christmas energy mostly into Passover. My Passover is like probably nobody's Passover anywhere. And also, we celebrated Hanukkah and invited everybody we knew. We would have over 100 people at our house to have latkes and applesauce, and that's what my children's memory is of these big events, of eating latkes and brisket, of, having a great time. Presents, yes, but I just think that if you want to celebrate Christmas, there will be plenty of people who would welcome you to their homes. And you, in return, can welcome them to yours to celebrate Hanukkah. And I think, really, that's the solution to world peace right there. I mean, I just don't think a book like this is helpful in any way to anybody. Mm-hmm. Not to Christians, not to Jews, certainly not to the people who are left out.
Not to interfaith families.
Not to interfaith families. Mm-hmm. Not to people who believe in other forms of religion. It's not helpful.
And then one more thing, too, is that also this totally flies in the face of really the meaning of Hanukkah, because, I mean, what is the Hanukkah story really about is that the Maccabees did not assimilate to the Assyrian Greeks. Right. And this book is completely about assimilation, right. That we should all assimilate to the dominant culture. So it really flies in the face of one of the true messages of Hanukkah, being anti-assimilation.
So obviously you guys feel really passionate about this. As professionals, we don't like to simply pan a book, but, there's some issues with this book that people need to be aware of. That was our goal in this. We're not trying to be mean. I'm sure that the author had the best of intentions, but we do feel that he maybe overlooked a few points. So, Rachel, Kathy, thank you very much for so openly sharing your feelings about Shmelf the Hanukkah Elf and about the greater topic of Christmas envy.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Heidi.
If you enjoy the Book of Life podcast, please become a patron at patreon.com/Book of Life. Leave a review on iTunes or a comment on our blog at bookoflifepodcast.com. You can also like our page at facebook.com/Book of Life podcast. Follow us at twitter.com/Book of Life pod. Email us at bookoflifepodcast@gmail.com or leave us a voicemail at 561-206-2473. The Book of Life is a podcast service of the Feldman Library at Congregation B'nai Israel in Boca Raton, Florida at cbiboca.org and is supported in part by the Association of Jewish Libraries at jewishlibraries.org. Our background music is provided by the Freilach Makers Klezmer String Band. Thanks for listening, and happy reading.